Hi and welcome back to another video again from Computex 2023, but we are not in the exhibition area. We are in a hotel suite visiting Tech N. Well, they're now called Link Plus. And you might still remember Tech N. They made some very high performance water blocks in Germany, Berlin. And now they're showcasing this. Looks like an aluminum block, but I can tell you this is going to be extremely exciting. We are now looking at this tiny system first because I think it's very impressive to see how this fits in here very nicely and looks nice and also works nice. But let's remove that cover quickly. And what you can see inside here, that's a different version of what I had in my hands in the intro part. You can see this is an aluminum die cast part. So that's already quite different to a normal AIO, I would say. And what's also a lot different is you have something that you can call a quick connector, and also there is no pump here. The pump is sitting in the radiator up here. And that is part of why this concept is so much different from all the other AIOs that we currently see on the market. So on here we have two different versions. That is the opened version of the RTX 3080. As you can see, this is the die cast opened. It's a little bit difficult to kind of get a feel of what the water channels look like and like in which direction the water goes. Because like if you look at the traditional water block, it's maybe like, I don't know, like a copper plate, and you have an acrylic plate on top. You can easily estimate where the water flows through. That's a little bit more difficult on here. Overall though, like if this is closed, obviously the quick connect part will go on here. And the water will flow through the cooling structure, which is CNC milled. I mean, the rest of the part is normal aluminum die cast. But what makes this so special, and also why this takes a lot of like ingenuity to make, is those structures that you can see all around. Because you have to keep in mind, this is not a custom water cooling. This means we don't have a typical reservoir somewhere. We have to create it somewhere else. And if you think of a CPU AIO, the most dangerous part is that air could be trapped in the pump, and overall the pump could run dry and damage the pump. That's something you absolutely want to avoid. That's why these structures are here, to trap air in the two major directions where you would mount the cooler in. So for example, horizontal and like vertical, both of those would be covered, that in both directions the air would be trapped in here and not get stuck in the pump. The people behind Link Plus, which you might previously known as Tech N, are experts when it comes to like those cooling structures, if you look at what they did in the past. And that's also one of the only things that are like CNC milled, apart from the die cast you can see on here. You also have this area, that's the GPU contact surface, that's CNC milled just to make sure that it's perfectly flat and having like perfect contact for best temperatures. Then obviously some of the like small threads have to be cut afterwards, and this structure in here, which is like slotted afterwards. But apart from that, everything is aluminum die cast, which will make this extremely cost effective and efficient. Which means that this should be like a much cheaper solution for the mass market than anything else that's currently on the GPU cooling market. Because if you take a fully CNC milled copper block, that's like only maybe slightly better when it comes to performance, will be just so much more expensive. So yeah, that's definitely very, very interesting. So now let's go over to the radiator and basically the rest of your potential new water cooling loop. So let's just inspect this from the outside first. I think just the design already looks pretty nice with the Link logo on it, but obviously because this is a concept, for the future maybe it will carry an ASUS or like an MSI logo. Obviously the fans could be different as well, depending on whatever brand will do with this. And if you look at this from the outside perspective, just like the shape of the radiator, you will notice that it's flat on here, but then there's this extended part on the back. If we look at this area right here, the pump will sit inside here. And also in this area, we will have additional pockets that can carry air, like an additional reservoir. Similar what we had like with these cutouts in the cooler already. All of this is optimized that in any kind of direction you mount it, so for the radiator as well, not only for the cooler, any orientation will be covered so that air can be caught, like an additional reservoir. And that's also what this in front is for. It's also to catch additional air to make sure that no matter how you mount it, the pump will not run dry. So that's already a very interesting design. And what's probably even more entertaining are those connectors. Because as you can see, I already split them apart. Usually they are connected together, then you would just connect it to your potential graphics card. But if you split them up, that's what I find really fascinating. You can hook up a second radiator like in series. So you can even extend your cooling loop depending on your cooling needs, depending on the power consumption of your card, and also like what your case supports. So for example, you would connect this to the GPU, this to the second radiator, and then from the second radiator, you would go back to the GPU. And now you have to think about this because this is like modular. If, let's say you run an RTX 30 gen or like 40 gen, and you keep running this for like 2 years. And then maybe RTX 50 is out. You have to think about that this is basically the water cooling loop. So you have your radiator and you have your reservoir and you have your pump all in this system. If you buy a new GPU, you can just buy this because it doesn't even contain the pump or anything. You can just swap out the card with the cooler and attach it to your existing water cooling loop. So you will save a lot of cost, and it's also from an economical and ecological point of view, it's just very good because you don't have to throw away your components. You can just reuse what you already have. And this way, it's good for our environment, and it's also very good for your pocket because you don't have to buy those parts again. The cooler I had in my hands at the beginning of the video in the intro is this one. That is a prototype for the 7900 XTX. You can see it's fully CNC milled. And the reason for that is because obviously if a new GPU comes to the market, you have to test your design first. Just to make sure that everything fits, they will first CNC mill apart and verify it, test cooling capabilities and everything. And once everything is confirmed and working, they will turn this into an aluminum die cast part. And here in the system, you would see an example using a 7900 XTX. So basically the same cooler I just had in my hands. And this is running with a 360 radiator in the front, also in this orientation. And on here you can see how the connector is fitted to the card, and that's a bit different to, let's say, a quick connector you might know from a custom water cooling loop where you just pull it back and it like snaps off. That's different because there is this screw in here and you basically slide it in and then tighten the screw to make sure it's perfectly aligned. This is how this connection would look like if it closes, and you see that there's the screw I was talking about earlier. The nice thing about having this screw is that you don't have to push from the front, so there will be no force to like the GPU, to the PCI Express slot, to the motherboard. All will be done by this one single screw. And you can see that's fairly easy and also quick to do. It's not like a pop-on quick connector, but with this design that you first have to push it in and at a certain time it will start like sealing off, then yeah, I mean, it will just never spill, no matter if you open or if you close it. And this way you will not stress like neither GPU nor mainboard during the installation process. And after opening it again, you can see that's all the water that's left on these connectors. Also in between, you can see there are some like gold fingers. That's because this connector is also forming the electrical connection between the GPU, because you can see some wires, and also the radiator and the pump for communication. I'm pretty sure you will ask yourself, but how will it perform, especially because those are aluminum parts? And I think a lot of people have the misconception that aluminum might perform very bad, but as you can see, the temperature with this 7900 XTX running Furmark load, and you can see the board power draw is around 350 watt, the GPU temperature is sitting at like 48, 49 degrees Celsius, hotspot 75 roughly. Those are amazing temperatures. And there is no reason why you wouldn't go for this like instead of copper, especially because this will be just so much cheaper. Let's talk about the price point, which I think is extremely exciting, because you might think, okay, it looks like a custom water cooling solution, like what's going to be the cost? This block that will be on the GPU has roughly the same kind of cost as an air cooler that's sitting on the GPU. So if you buy a graphics card with this equipped, it would cost exactly the same as any kind of other air cooling solution. And then the only thing you have to get is the radiator that contains the pump. And this will obviously, I mean, it looks like an AIO. It contains the same kind of components as an AIO, radiator, fan, pump, everything. So this is exactly the same cost as any other like 240 AIO, for example. And that's where it gets interesting, because you will get like an extremely good cooling solution, like very high performance at a very low price. Essentially just a tiny bit higher than an air-cooled card, because you have to buy this. But then you have to keep in mind, you are able to keep this, because in the next generation, you can just keep this in your system, upgrade the graphics card, and you pay essentially a lot less. And you will be able to fit it to your needs, and also be able to run a much better cooling than any other AIO could do. Because, as I said before, you can upgrade this. You can use a 240, you can use a 360, you can like connect multiple of them. And that's where I think it's very exciting, because it provides both very good cooling and at the same time a very low price, which for us as consumers, it's like, that's the dream, right? And that's why I hope there is a manufacturer out there that will collaborate with Link, so we can actually see this on the market. I would be very excited, and I'm pretty sure you will be too. So if there's any manufacturer out there and you find that this is interesting, you should definitely get in touch with Link. Well, you can definitely find them on their website. And for you out there, let me know in the comments what you think about it. And thanks for tuning in. Till next time. Bye-bye.